Today on Nerd and Normal, as technology advances, nefarious people are using it to scam in different ways. What are they doing, and what can you do to keep yourself safe?
Welcome to Nerd and Normal with Matthew and Gareth, opening your mind to the world of technology. So let's get started.
G'day, Matthew. Look, every day somewhere in the world, someone is scammed. The emails look real, the voices on the telephone sound legitimate, or the mobile, and the websites, in most cases, are perfect copies of the genuine thing. In a world where deception has gone now digital or AI, understanding the game is the only way to really win it. Now, today, I know we're going to unpack the psychology behind the scams. How do you deal with them?
Hello, Gareth. It's a difficult one to sort of deal with after the situation has been done. It's really difficult to know what created the situation that got the person into the situation they're in now, but then also to how to recover from that in the future. So, and then try and teach them what to be aware of to keep themselves safe. Scams come in a whole range of different things. You have, as you said, phone calls, text messages, emails, websites. The number of scams is growing massively, and the way they work's also changing as well. So it comes down to, I think, education for a lot of people, rather than trying to recover after the fact.
Yeah. Let me say, during the week, even before we had this episode, I got two scams already. In fact, one was the 9th time they tried to contact me from Telstra. That was the first one, wanting me to log on to update something, was a scam. But yesterday, I got one from an organisation called HotDoc. I've got it in my hand, and I just read it. It looks absolutely like it's official. And then it says, Medicare refund update. Your Medicare refund is awaiting updated information. You can securely, which is a very ironic term, review and update your details below. Now, straight away, I thought, no, they're not going to contact me by email. But what did I do? I went straight to the sender and looked at the email from which it originated. And it was info@pixieapps.com. Now, straight away, it's garbage. Telstra, CBA, HotDoc, official organ, and the Australian Tax Office. Repeatedly, I'm getting scams from them.
The worst bit is at least you checked to see where the email was coming from. And that works.
That's only because I know you. Sorry.
It's all right. But it doesn't always happen like that. There are times I've seen, on numerous occasions, emails that appear to be coming from the legitimate sites. And it makes it really hard. And that's where you require the businesses to step up and do their job.
Well, that was, I suppose, my implicit question. Organisations like Telstra and the CBA, Commonwealth Bank of Australia, and the Australian Tax Office, doesn't some degree of responsibility rest with them in trying to protect their clients from such things? Or is it impossible because they don't know when that scam is being sent out to a client?
I think it's a bit of both. For places like the banks, the government, in a lot of cases, they can't control who has their logos and then can make emails and websites that look like theirs. But they also can't control what other email systems are doing and sending out emails. They can't do it at all. The ones that can are the ones that actually do control the communications channels, like Telstra's the fine example. Those Telstra scam emails you're getting, if you notice they're coming from Big Pond or Telstra email addresses that are legitimate, that exist. So in theory, Telstra controls the entire communication channels all the way through, and they still let those emails go through. So yes, they can do something, they just don't. In the cases of the government and other places, they can't control anything. But what they could do, and I think is a valid thing to ask of them, is, hey, here's this email I got, here's this text message I got, can you do something to get rid of that website that exists?
Well, here lies my dilemma from yesterday. I went on to Google, looked at contact HotDoc. found a telephone number. Someone actually put a telephone number. So I rang that it was a 1300 number, so there was a cost to me. I rang that particular number, and there were 4 options. You know, if you want, dial 1, if you want, dial 2, blah, blah. I dialed every single one of them, and the message on after every single one of them was, go to our website if you want further information. And I thought, how frustrating is this? I want to tell them something that's causing them damage and their potential customers, and I can't contact anybody.
Yep, and that's where I think businesses have sort of dropped the ball massively. They've got customers who are wanting to help them to help other customers to not fall for these scams, but unfortunately the businesses themselves put their heads in the sand and don't bother actually doing the right thing and protecting their customers. Or, in the case of Hot Doc, protecting their IP, their logo, their whole bits and pieces, which is their trusted situation. They just ignore it.
Are you saying, let's just go back to Telstra, and it happened recently with Qantas as well, where thousands of bits of information were released. With Telstra, if I get an email that has the sender, the word telstra.com in it as a sender, but it's a scam, are you saying that Telstra, because they're using a telstra.com sort of nomenclature, that Telstra knows about that?
Yes, it's actually had to go through their server twice. Has to go through their server to be sent, has to go through their server again to be received. So they do have a spam filter, believe it or not, that does block things, usually the wrong things, but it does block things. But it doesn't block that. And it could block it on both situations, because if they receive an email to be sent through their system, they can say, oh, we can see there's a problem here. We're going to bounce that back to the sender and say, nope, that is not allowed through our server. They don't do that. If it does manage to get past that, their own spam filter should see what's in there and say, nope, we recognize this as a spam and scam email. We're going to stop it and block it and put it in the person's junk email or bounce it back from that situation. They do neither.
When I rang Telstra to report the most recent one, they said, look, thank you for your information, and please send us the copy, which I did. They said, if you ever get an email purportedly from Telstra, if it starts without identifying you specifically by name on a personal level, it's not from us. To which I thought, yes, but the scammer's going to know that. The scammer's going to, dear Gareth, dear whatever.
Exactly right. And with you mentioned the Qantas hack that was released recently, that wasn't a scam that affected the individuals or Qantas. It affected up the stream quite a fair bit. The actual international company that does a lot of things for Qantas, they were compromised with the scam. Again, scams affect everybody these days. But the issue that arises now is that entire database of all those Qantas customers, and customers for Disney's involved and other companies as well, that's now all on the internet, on the dark web. And that information there can be used again by scammers to not just blast out scam emails, but target individuals, because they'll have their email addresses, their names, their addresses, their date of birth, their actual phone numbers, the whole box and dice, and they can say, oh, who's a Big Pond customer? We'll target them using more of their personal details now.
Yeah. You just mentioned something there, and as normal, and you're the nerd, let me ask you to elaborate. You mentioned the dark web. What is the dark web?
So we all know you go onto Google Chrome or Firefox, or if you've got half a brain, Edge, and you can do a search for things.
Was that meant to be a blooper? Sorry, go on.
No, that's true. So you end up going and you just do a search for things. You go to regular websites. However, there's a program called Tor. Now, this program is built on the Firefox program, and it doesn't go to the main websites. There's a special hidden little method, what they call onion addresses, that you can't get to using these normal programs. If you use this Tor program, you can open all of these things up and look inside of them. And these hidden onion websites are where all of this dark web stuff happens. There are multiple different message boards and websites where this stuff is sold.
So does that mean someone as technologically inadequate as me, if I go onto Google and type in that whatever you just said, I'm going to get the dark web?
If you go onto Google, you do a search for Tor browser, T-O-R browser, you can download it, you can install it, you can run it, and then you can start doing things on the dark web, yes.
Oh, okay. We won't go there. Look, let's just look at some of the scams, the possible scams, and as normal, tell me if I'm wrong, we've got phishing scams where they impersonate some legitimate organisation like they have with me, Telstra. We've got romance scams. We've got scams that promise a large sum of money if you do the following, which ends up giving them your bank details. We've got the scams that we pay for a product but it never actually turns up. We've got a financial scam or an investment scam that asks you to invest in a thing and you're going to get a lot of money. I don't know, Bitcoin, is that probably one of those? We've got the scams that claim to be a tech. You've got a problem with your computer and we can fix it. And so Mr. and Mrs. Average, or the normal like me, thinks, I don't understand enough about this, so maybe I'll open it up. Is that a fair categorisation of the kinds of scams, or are there many, many more?
There are many, many more, but the problem is they're all interconnected. So at the end of the day, the best one I've got, there are multiple people on the internet called scam baiters that work on trying to trick the scammers and occupy the scammers for as long as possible. That way they're not dealing with actual people to lose money to them. But one scam crawls into another scam. So for example, the tech support scam becomes the refund scam, where they say, we've overcharged you for this, we want to give you more money, and the scam changes, it evolves. So there's no really one solid descriptor for any one scam. The scams cover a gamut of different things, and the worst bit about it, the reason why this happens, is because the scammers have been helped by psychologists over the many years, and there's actually a playbook on how to run all these different scams. It's not a case of one intelligent person doing it. Someone did it originally, it evolved, and now the playbook on how to do that scam and other scams is available freely on the internet. And the worst bit about it is psychologists have helped. Psychologists helped write the script for all these scams, help make sure the websites trick you into falling for them. And that's where the problem is. Psychologists understand us, and that's dangerous.
Okay. Tell me if I'm doing the wrong thing. I
Always.
don't do it any... There goes another blooper from Matthew. Please notice that all of the bloopers seem to be coming from him, this IT genius. Now, I don't do this anymore, but I used to get telephone calls from someone in another country. Hello, is that Gareth? Which I know I always answer the phone. I just said that. So I've, in the past, in frustration, I've kept them online and stirred as much as I can out of them to the point where they get frustrated and they hang up. So have I done the wrong thing by keeping them online on the telephone for too long? They're able to then track me or whatever me?
So it comes down to you're actually doing something helpful for somebody else by doing that, because somebody who's going to fall for it won't fall for it. So for that person, the next phone call, it's great. However, these days they're using AI technology to pretend to be your voice. So if they have enough content from you, from your voice, which unusually for you, that's all they need is literally a couple of seconds. So ignoring other stuff you do when your voice is available freely, always, if they've got about 10 seconds of audio from you, they can then create an AI voice of yours. If they have enough of your data from the dark web, where they have your phone number, they have maybe contacts you've had with other people in the past, they'll use that AI to pretend to be you, to ring somebody else to get them to fall for a scam. So at the end of the day, you're helping somebody else, but you could be damaging one of your contacts.
Okay, well, I've stopped doing that. In fact, I've tried to get my phone, which we'll talk about hopefully in a moment. I've tried to get my phone to just divert any calls that are not in my contact list or are hidden. I don't answer. So that's something I do from now on. The other thing on Facebook, I often get people wanting to friend me who are already my friends. That's another form of scam. What are they after there? So
that is the scam where they haven't had their Facebook account compromised, they've had it duplicated. So, and this is one thing I like to always say, if you've got a Facebook page, make sure it's locked down as much as you possibly can. Your friends list is only available for you to see. The account doesn't allow people who you don't know or whom aren't friends of other friends of yours to request to be friends. Your account needs to be locked down so that way no one can see your friends, no one can get there and try and be a friend of yours that isn't already a friend. But there are people who don't have that set up for their Facebook account. The scammers get a hold of your profile picture off Facebook. They then go through the person's friend list, they keep track of all those people, and they then create this new Facebook account with the unfortunate victim's face and name, and then friend all their friends in the hope that the people will fall for it. The next part of the scam is the scammer then says, I'm stuck overseas right now. Can you send me some money?
Oh, that's happened to me often.
And that's unfortunately what happens. It's not the person's original Facebook account has been compromised. It's been duplicated. And Facebook has a procedure in place to stop that. Doesn't always work.
So when someone tells me on the telephone, I've been hacked, my Facebook account has been hacked, what does that mean?
It means that they're unfortunately not understanding how it works. It hasn't been hacked, it's been duplicated. And that's the situation. Their account would still be fine and safe, but unfortunately, they've now got to work with Facebook to get that other account deleted.
It's small businesses most vulnerable because they're not like a Telstra. They're not like a CBA where they've got this mammoth organisation to help them sort out and fix scammers. But the small business doesn't necessarily have that backup. And I know joining us, we have a very intelligent person. He was the Minister for Small Business in the New South Wales government, and he's online. His name is Damien Tudehope, and I know, Matthew, he's going to join us right now. Damien, good morning, sir.
Pleasure to be with you, Gareth.
What would you consider to be the assessment of the current scale and cost of scams to, firstly, the New South Wales government?
The cost is measured by those actions you've got to do to take to prevent it, as well as perhaps remediate issues which arise from it occurring. So certainly from a government's perspective, it is a high priority in terms of the security of the government network. It's a high priority in relation to privacy issues which arise in relation to government stored information. So generally, as a rule, my perception is that governments do take it very seriously, because the consequences of not taking it seriously have wide ramifications because of the amount of information that governments collect and the circumstances of breaches in relation to the collection of that information leads to a serious deterioration in public confidence. So putting a figure on that in terms of what the budget cost is, it's hard to know. Each individual public sector agency would have their own cyber policies in place. New South Wales Customer Service has a very high priority which surrounds the information which it collects in relation to taxpayers.
Sure. Damien, if I could just follow that up with a different sort of question. When the government, your government or any government, collects the information, collects the data and the intelligence, to what extent is there a definite and positive sharing with organisations like the ACCC, an ASIC and the ATO and various banks and even the telcos, which seem to be hit as well?
I don't think there's any arrangement for data sharing, but I think there is an arrangement for notification. And I think the starting point in relation to any breaches of data collection commences with a notification to the New South Wales Privacy Commissioner and a remediation plan, which is then adopted in consultation with the Privacy Commissioner. So there are obligations in relation to notification of breaches, which have to be notified to the Privacy Commissioner.
Matthew, you're the nerd in this combination. What sort of issue would you like to raise with Damien?
So the question that it has to be asked is, when it comes to an individual or a business that's been compromised by a scam, what's the best thing they can do to sort of lock themselves down in terms of the government help?
Yeah, well, let me just talk about small business, because one of the things that I talk about often in relation to small business is that they don't prioritise security and scams and cyber protection. That is just something which is low down, certainly in relation to startups. If you ask them how are you spending your money in relation to startups? Security would be would not be high on their checklist in terms of making sure, and really that's a failure of priorities, because if you look at intellectual property which they collect, if you look at potential customer lists, all sorts of things that small businesses collect, that is their asset. The customer list, the intellectual property, that is something which is the marketable part of their business. So failure to have a proper approach to cybersecurity and to acknowledge the existence of scams is really a big issue for small businesses. And I used to always stress that if you're setting up a business, then the last thing you want is to walk in to your business and turn on the computer in the morning and find out that you have been compromised in one way or another. Perhaps money has gone out of your bank account, or alternatively, someone has accessed your customer list, or the like. So a priority for small businesses is to ensure that they have proper security systems in place. And those agencies which advise small business, I think, are much more aware of making sure that that's in place. One of the things that, if I could be political for 1 minute, is the not having Business Connect, which is a business advisory service advising startups in relation to this sort of stuff, is a real negative, I think, from the government. And it's probably something that should be addressed. But that initial advice in relation to cybersecurity is just so essential for the potential success of that business.
But if it does happen, what should they do? What can the government do to help them if they have been compromised?
Well, generally, it's not the government that'll step in, unless, of course, it is information that they have shared with the government, and the government has breached their obligations to the business as a consumer. But it's like anything else, Matthew. If you're setting up a business and don't put in proper security relating to that asset, then the onus is on you. Governments won't step in to protect you or help you. You might have an issue with your bank. You might be the subject of some sort of ransom demand or the like. In those circumstances, don't look to the government support, because it won't be forthcoming unless the government has been party to the scam.
Matthew and I certainly will explore the full gamut of the difficulties with scams. I mean, just in the first half of this year of 2025, over $174 million has been lost to people who have been scammed. I mean, that amount of money would buy 2 F-35 jets for the Air Force. So it's an incredible figure. I'm so sick and tired on the telephone, via email. Almost every second day, someone tries to scam me on a personal level. And finally, has that happened to you?
Of course, it's happened to everyone. And personally, we should make our own individual decisions. But I'm very reluctant to answer phone calls from people who are not in my address list. I'm always very, very reluctant to take a call, for example, from a no ID caller. They're becoming rarer. But just the simple things, like emails that you receive that you can't identify the sender, or alternatively that have attachments to them that you can't. They're straightforward things which should be just inbuilt into people's consciousness. Now, however, unfortunately, there are still people who will open those emails and have their data compromised one way or another.
Damien, as always, thank you so much for your time. And now I know why you won't answer my telephone call sometimes, because I must be using caller ID, which I must unhook. But you are doing a marvellous job in the upper house, so thank you for your time, and don't get scammed.
Good on you. Thanks,
Thank you, Damien. Just yesterday, I actually got a phone call from somewhere in Victoria. I've had plenty of them over the past few years. An Indian call centre trying to do small business loans, because, of course, I run a small business. The number of these I get is astronomical. So even small businesses get these financial things all the time.
As the former minister just said. Look, here's a silly question. There are people who have Android phones, and there are people who have Apple phones. I have one, you have one, of the different makes and models. Is there any process with either or both where the phone itself can block? For example, I did Mr. Normal here, who doesn't understand, went to Google and it said how to block spam calls on Android, and it said open the phone app, tap on the three dots, choose settings, tap on caller ID and spam, enable C caller and spam ID, enable filter spam calls to automatically silence calls. Does that make sense, or is that just only for one sort of phone of yesteryear?
It's only for Android phones with the Google phone program on it, because Google or Android phones have multiple different phone programs. They're all different. So for the Google Android phone program, for Google Pixel and other phones use it, that method works if the phone number that you're getting the phone call from is a known scam number. Unfortunately, they're not all known scam phone numbers.
Is there an easy way for me to download something when a phone call comes in, not a mobile phone call necessarily, but a phone call that's hardwired, to have something on my phone that checks the incoming caller?
The closest thing that I know of is the actual White Pages app, which you can search for that in either the Play Store if you're on Android or on the App Store if you're on Apple. It will receive... what happens is your phone will receive the phone call. It will then ask the White Pages app, hey, do you know what this number is? White Pages will then say to the phone program, hey, yeah, I know this phone number. It's from ABC store. And it will show that on the screen for you. Again, it only works with the numbers that the White Pages actually knows, and it's not needed if your phone has that number in its contacts already.
Okay, so that process only works if it's coming from a proper phone rather than a mobile phone, because White Pages doesn't have mobile telephone numbers.
Doesn't have many, no. So it's not a perfect solution, but then neither's the option that both Apple and Android have using the phone itself to do it.
So what is my responsibility every time I personally, excuse the tautology, receive a scammer? What is my responsibility following that when I don't get sucked in?
So if you're not being sucked in at all, your main responsibility is be cautious. Be wary. If something's saying to you, do things straight away, take a step back and think, no, I'm going to take my time, I'm going to think about this, and I'll deal with it later. Your main responsibility is always yourself and your own safety, whether it be security of yourself physically, your personal information, or your financial information. All of that is hugely important. So taking your time is hugely important, and making sure that what you're seeing, what you're reading, what you're hearing makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, contact somebody else to try and help it make sense.
But do I also have a responsibility to get in touch with as many of my friends and say, watch out for?
Only if you pretty much fall for the scam. If you're not falling for it, if you don't give the scammer your details, pretty much no, because they're in the same situation that you're in. The fact that they'll have people randomly contacting them, trying to trick them, not based off you. It's going to be based off their own leaked data. Or, as scams used to run years ago, scammers used to contact phone numbers and email addresses at random. They'd literally have a computer which would just dial phone numbers. They used to have computers that would just create email addresses out of thin air, putting ABC in front of the @bigpond.com or the @gmail.com. They don't need that now. The data they have access to through the dark web databases is huge. And not only is it just the basics hacks that put stuff on there, like the Qantas situation, there are actual databases of known victims. So somebody's already fallen for a scam in the past, goes on a separate database, and they get targeted again.
Yeah. Okay. Scamming. It's the future's way of robbing people, and it's becoming more sophisticated with the use of AI. We've already looked at AI. To what extent is AI a tool that the scammer is going to use, and how?
I think everything is a tool for the scammers. Think back to the 80s, the Nigerian prince scams. They used the mail to send out their scams. Whatever the emerging technology is, they will try and work out a way to take advantage of it to get easy access to money and information. So AI is becoming a huge part of it. They're using text to voice these days. They're doing voice recognition. They have the AI programs writing programs to try and trick people into clicking on links. There are whole websites created by AI that don't just have pictures created by AI in them, but actually the code in the website to load up programs on your computer is written by AI.
I would suggest, if you're watching Matthew and myself at the moment, in 4 or 5 days, it's going to be Halloween. So watch out for the Halloween spook who tries to get into your computer and rob you of all your money, because that's what a scammer wants to do. It wants to rob you and as many other people as it possibly can.
Not just the computer, but also the phone. It's anywhere. Anything that has information or money. Everything has value these days. If you have value, which is information, money, your friends list, for them, it's all a chance for extra cash. Easy cash at that.
Matthew, I'm going to sell my computer. I'm going to get a hammer to my mobile phone, and I'm going to go back to writing letters. Thanks for your time.
You can join the Nigerian princes back in the 80s.
Yeah,
Thanks
that's
a lot,
right. I'm normal. I just go back into the past. Thanks, mate. We'll talk again.
See you, Gareth.